Okay, good evening, everyone. We practice meditation, we practice mindfulness. We practice with the purpose, for the purpose of strengthening our minds. We don't practice to escape or to change, not to change our experiences anyway. You don't come here thinking, I'll go to the meditation center so I won't have to deal with my real life problems. I hope you don't. I need a vacation, I'll go and stay in a room in a basement somewhere. We come here to become strong. It's important that we understand the weakness in defilement and the weakness in evil. Goodness is strength, not because it's goodness, but because that's the definition of goodness. It's a part of the definition of goodness is strength. It's a characteristic of certain mind states that really deserve the title of goodness. Yes, there's a strength to them. And the reason why we denounce and reject certain other states, greed, anger, delusion, it's because they're weak, they're vulnerable, fragile. If you're a person easily angered, you're going to react. Easily disturbed. What's wrong with anger? Well, we say anger is evil. What's really evil about it? The worst thing about anger is you poke someone who's angry and they're disturbed, they suffer. Or greed. If you like things, if you want things, you're vulnerable, you're weak, easily manipulated. How do you manipulate someone? Well, there are different ways, but one of the easiest ways is take advantage of their addictions, their likes, their dislikes. It's much harder to manipulate someone who has no likes or dislikes, who is not moved. This is what the Buddha said. He said, Puttasa loka dhammihi cittang yasana kampati. There's the sort of person who, when touched by the loka dhamma, the ways of the world, cittang yasana kampati, their mind, the mind of such a person, the mind of a person who is not shaken, not kampati. Kampati is like this, you waver, no. Asokang, because their mind is not shaken by the vicissitudes of life, the changes, the ways of the world. They're what's the word? Unsad, unmournful, unregretful, unregretting. Virajang, stainless, pure. No? Kemang, safe, safe, truly safe. Etamangalamuttamang, this is the highest blessing. This is a ultimate blessing, a real and true blessing. So I thought it would be useful for us to talk a little bit about, I think I've talked about these before, but about the loka dhamma, the things in the world that disturb us, that cause us to waver, in our minds, cause us to become upset. What are they? Gain, and so much of what we do in the world is for gain, to get this, get that. Get money. Money is really just a placeholder, isn't it? I mean, money is not a good in and of itself. I argued with my philosophy professor about this last year. He was saying money isn't the people, because I think it was, who was it? Aristotle says something about people who are who crave after money, who see money as the ultimate good. And I said, well, isn't it possible that someone could just really like money? Because it's true, no? As ridiculous as it seems, people are just happy to have lots of money. I mean, if you think about it logically, well, it is just paper. But we get very proud. It's gotten to the point where money no longer is a placeholder. Money is, it represents so much. It represents power, represents getting so many things. You can get what you want if you have money. So money itself becomes something that you want to get. Wanting to get possessions, a car, a house, so many things. But it's really deeper than that, isn't it? Wanting to get food, craving food. Very, very simple desire. Wanting food that you don't have. Coming to a meditation center where all the food is, I don't know, I think Javen makes good food. I don't want to disparage his food, but maybe it's not haute couture. Or certainly right now we have a Vietnamese student, and where are you from? South America? Central America? Mexico. A Mexican student. We don't have any Mexican food, I don't think. Maybe some Vietnamese food. Wanting it, wanting this, wanting that. The things we want. Disturbed by it, no? How disturbed the mind becomes, how weak the mind is because of wanting. It becomes an obsession where you think, as soon as I get it, I'll be happy, right? It's okay to want, because once I get it, then I'll be happy. And if you don't challenge yourself, you'll never see it may never, not never, but it may take time for you to actually see how precarious the situation is. As long as you can keep getting what you want, maybe tempering your desires sometimes, I never see the problem with it until one day, bam, lost. I'm disturbed by loss. I'm disturbed by gain because you can't just sit here when you want something. You have to go and get it. When you do sit and meditate, you're disturbed constantly by things you want. Gain. Loss. Disturbed by not getting, or by getting, by losing the things we want. And not being able to get them. We're afraid of losing money. We're afraid of losing possessions. We're devastated by loss. Loss of wealth, loss of health, loss of relatives, friends. We put put all of our eggs in one basket, I guess. Put our eggs in the basket of the world. We put all of our faith and we wager all of our happiness on externalities. Our happiness depends upon things which are not dependable. The world is not dependable. A big part of what the Buddha tried to teach, what he saw and what he focused on, and what he tried to impress upon his students: impermanence, uncertainty. That the nature of the world is a full spectrum. As long as there's only part of what's possible that is acceptable to you, you're always going to be weak, vulnerable. Until you can be at peace and at ease with the full spectrum of reality, whatever happens, independent, unshaken, right? You'll never truly be at peace until you come to that. Those are the first two loka dhammas. The second one is, at one extreme we have fame. At the other one we have, what's the opposite of fame? It's something about, I can't remember the word. I guess obscurity is perhaps the best one. But it's a bit misleading to say obscurity. It really means not having any friends, not having anyone know you. Anyone knows your name. Test. Because we're praised and blamed, and we're not praised and not blamed. How we treat, how we react, how we respond is quite important. So our meditation, I mean, this is all important. It's important discussion for our meditation, because this is what we're trying to do. We're not trying to change our situation. We're trying to become strong. When we like something or when we dislike something, when we're moved and upset by the world. The final pair, of course, is the most basic, and that's it really relates to the rest of them, I think. That's happiness and unhappiness, or pleasure and pain. Pleasure and pain is probably the best way to understand it. Pleasure. We get pleasure out of all of the other things, right? Praise brings us pleasure. Friends, fame brings us pleasure. Gain brings us pleasure, but there's just pleasure, basic pleasure as well. Soft seats give us pleasure. Nice beds. Good food. Food itself, just food and nourishment, gives us this warm and full feeling. It certainly takes away the pain and anguish of being hungry. Pleasure seekers. It's really not a deep teaching. I mean, shouldn't be hard to understand, but it is. It is because we're taught something quite different. But it shouldn't be hard to understand that pleasure seeking isn't a viable means to find happiness. Always getting what you want is not something anyone ever recommends, right? So we tend instead to live in mediocrity or in some kind of liminal state where we're neither happy nor unhappy, we're not at peace with ourselves, we're able to sustain a low-grade happiness for the most part by not trying to be too happy. Especially as Buddhists, you see a lot of Buddhists who live simple lives, understanding that getting caught up in too much pleasure is going to lead to suffering. And so they engage in pleasurable activities, but they don't obsess about them. And they have an awareness, a mindfulness of how dangerous it can be to obsess about pleasure and seek it out. But they're still vulnerable. We're still vulnerable. It's a sort of a is to just say, well, I won't try for too much pleasure and I'll bear with some pain. That's not really a solution, though. It's not strong. It's still weak. You're still moved by pleasure and pain. Most of us are like this. Most of us are not addicts in the strong sense of the word. But we're still moved by pain. We don't like it. We're weak. We're susceptible to pain and pleasure as well. Hey, who doesn't want to feel pleasure, right? Weakness. This is weakness. Well, it literally is. It's not trying to be um, strict or mean about it, but it literally, in a literal sense, is weakness. That's the point. That it would be stronger. We would be much stronger if we were at peace with pleasure and pain, unmoved by it. That when pleasure pain came, it was just another experience. When pain comes, it's just another experience. When our happiness, our peace, our tranquility, our stability of mind, it's not dependent. It's not influenced by our experiences. It's the only way because experiences are unpredictable. You can predict and you can control for short periods, but not forever. It's not a solution. So this should help to understand a little clearer about why we're doing what we're doing. Why are we sitting, repeating to ourselves, rising, falling? I think we overlook how powerful just that noting to yourself the stomach rising and falling can be. It's an exercise in strength, in invincibility, where you experience something without reacting to it, without judging it, without any kind of labels or value judgment of good or bad. You want to be at peace, you want to be safe, invincible, strong. This is the way to go. Learn how to see things as they are, how to live your life, how to be alive and not be bogged down by judging everything, moment after moment after moment. Judge everything. So, the loka dhammas are always something useful to go over. And the general teaching of the weakness, how they are a test for us. They test us constantly. And you can judge and you can measure your strength against these things, against the vicissitudes of life. You want to know what it means to be enlightened? How enlightened am I? I am as enlightened as I can withstand the vicissitudes of life without being moved by them, without being upset for or against. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a good night.